What celebrity did bad things but everyone forgot what they did because they're famous? Rick James kidnapped 2 women with his wife while on separate crack binges. And he fucked up Charlie Murphy's couch. Darknet. Boy George, he beat a guy with a metal chain after cuffing him to a radiator. Should make for an interesting sequence in his forthcoming biopic. Oh god, I'm guilty of forgetting all about that. I'm guilty of forgetting about Boy George. Steven Tyler became the guardian for a 16-year-old he was dating when he was 25 so he could bring her on tour. Knocked her up too. Ted Nugent did the same thing. Don't think he knocked her up though. Piers Morgan was the editor of the Daily Mirror during the Iraq War. Published photos that he knew were fake of American and British troops abusing Iraqi prisoners. He was fired but somehow managed to make a successful media career out of it. Didn't Jeremy Clarkson punch him in the face? Jared Leto's been accused of rape by half a dozen 13 to 15 years old girls. He kinda comes off a bit as a tool. Kinda acts douchish and arrogant. I have heard that before though, a bit. He comes off as a gigantic, huge, massive, solar fucking douchebag. NBA Hall of Famer Karl Malone edit, better choice of words. And then denied that the kids were his and refused to pay any child support. Karl Malone is one of the biggest pieces of shit there is. And he's still treated like a god by the Utah fan base. One of those kids grew up to be NFL offensive tackle Demetris Bell, who is still kind of somewhat hurt by his father's initial refusal to acknowledge him as Monsieur. George Wallace, the infamous pro-segregation governor of Alabama in the 60s, did not inform his wife that her doctor diagnosed her with cancer. The reason was that she was running for governor as a surrogate for him since he had reached his term limits and he thought that the diagnosis would negatively affect her chances of winning. She ended up finding out about it 4 years later during a visit to a gynecologist. But unfortunately the cancer had progressed to the point that she died from it 3 years after learning that she had cancer and that her husband had known about it. He ended up successfully getting the term limits repealed and went on to serve a few more terms as governor. People forget about this, I'm assuming, because of all of the other shitty things he did. Holy shit. Salman Khan, a very famous Indian actor. He killed someone by driving his car over them this year. I forget the specifics, but he drove his car over one or more people who were sleeping on the side of the road, killing at least one of them this year. He carried on with his acting career on Indian TV because he is famous. Edit _ since this gained so much, here are some articles from the incident. He ran over 4 people, killing one of them this year. He was later found guilty 13 years after the incident, then appealed and was cleared and charges quashed. Edit _ thank you to whoever gave me gold. And he also was abusive to his then-girlfriend, Aishwarya Rai, who was a Miss World, and a really powerful actress. She broke up with him and started dating this other actor. And that guy called a press conference when Salman started showing up at her door and being abusive. Salman used his influence to fuck up that guy's career. Vivek Oberoi. I loved him and Satya. He worked with some big actors. It's sad that he did a good thing by calling out Salman and lost his career because of it. He still does movies but no one talks about him anymore. There's a soccer player in Brazil who killed his wife, quartered her body, and gave it to dogs eat. He went to jail for a few years and now he is paying again and making tons of money again like nothing happened. How does anyone even want to be on his team? Like fuck, he might chop me up when I'm not looking. That's how you motivate the team, monsieur. Emma Roberts beat the shit out of her then-boyfriend Evan Peters, then continued to co-star in the same show as him, monsieur. I was looking for this. She left Evan Peters with a bloodied nose and bite marks after some people called the cops on them when they had a fight in their hotel room in Canada. I'm saying this as a woman. It says a lot about how obvious the abuse is that when the cops turn up to a domestic violence case, woman instead of the man. They continued to date until early this year. Maybe she changed, but if I'm completely honest, I just feel relieved on Evan Peters' behalf. It must have been really bad for them to arrest her and not him, monsieur. My brother-in-law got the shit beat out of him by his wife and he called the cops and they showed up and arrested him even though he had a broken nose and she didn't have a mark on her. I'm also a woman and that shit makes my blood boil. Karl Malone got a 13-year-old pregnant and refused to take care of that child. Is no one gonna mention Caitlyn Jenner hitting that pregnant woman and forcing her into traffic? Then getting the Woman of the Year award? I guess I remembered that. Turns out it was an elderly woman. And the woman died when she was hit by a Hummer, on an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Comedian Nikki Glaser talked about the recent Comedy Central Alec Baldwin roast in which Caitlyn Jenner participated. Nikki had planned to roast Jenner with a bunch of jokes about how Jenner had killed someone. But Jenner refused to participate in the roast if those jokes were made. Damn, they should have agreed to not do the jokes then done them anyway. Coco Chanel was a Nazi. Tila Tequila is a Nazi. I haven't heard the name Tila Tequila in almost a decade, and nobody liked her 10 years ago either. She was a semi-popular adult model when she was Tila Nguyen almost 20 years ago, but that's it. Marcos Alonso was driving drunk and killed a 22-year-old woman. Driving 70 miles per hour in a 30 miles per hour zone with an alcohol level of 0.93 milligrams. His final punishment was a $67,000 fine and a driving ban of 40 months. Edit. Since this is being misinterpreted, he was driving drunk and crashed into a stone wall. The woman who was killed was his girlfriend who was a passenger in his car. The 22-year-old woman was his girlfriend, and was in the car when the crash happened. Not defending him, it's just a very important detail. In my country there is a TV host that killed several people in a car accident. Twice. It was his fault both times. You can still see him on TV. Can you please give source? I'm from Romania and I'm pretty sure the op is as well. I believe he is talking about Serban Howdy. He killed 3 people in a car accident that was his fault. Source in English, http://Sarah in Romania. Canal.com, Archives, 2 July 2012, 24,623,650. HTML. Basically every rock star from earlier than the mid-80s has been confirmed to have had fucked a minor or 2 dozen. Just read up on any of them, they are all pretty fucking terrible. I mean, Rush never did anything like that in their career. Hell, they didn't even have groupies. The worst they did was smoke weed. Rush were the equivalent of the fantasy and science nerds in high school that used those talents to make a fuck ton of money after graduation. It's why I love them, monsieur. Andy Dick has sexually assaulted people an absurd amount of times and also got Phil Hartman's wife back into drugs, which led to her murdering Hartman in an intoxicated state. You would think he would have been ruined in the #meta movement. But apparently we pass it off like, that's classic Andy Dick. I feel like everyone hates Andy Dick. Like, is there anyone that actually does give Andy Dick the pass? I bet even Andy Dick hates Andy Dick. Mark Wahlberg beat and blinded a Vietnamese guy just because he was Vietnamese. I can't believe it took me this long scrolling to find this. He's making millions off the Transformers films and everyone conveniently has forgotten that he committed a hate crime. Charlie Sheen once had unprotected sex with his girlfriends when he has HIV. Do people actually forget how awful Sheen is? Yeah, he's a cocked-out party animal and all the bad that comes with that. He's never really tried to hide the fact that he's a bit of a fuckwit like that. I'm surprised the media never came down on him harder for it, but here we are. I think y'all know the song, Despacito, who is performed by Luis Fonsi. Well, this little piece of shit was married to a beautiful woman who had breast cancer. During her entire process of chemo, he wasn't there and he even told her when she had a breast removed. that he didn't want her as a woman. This end up in a divorce. From what I've heard, that's sadly common. Many breast cancer survivors with mastectomies have been left by husbands who thought them less of a woman sans one or both breasts. Steven Tyler was a serial rapist in the 70s and 80s. Now he's an old woman. He also became the legal guardian of a 14-year-old groupie so he could take her on tour and fuck her. Not sure what her parents were thinking. Gwyneth Paltrow. She's a con artist and manages an MLM, as well as recommending women treat their illness by putting rocks up their vagina and steaming their privates, causing harm to people. You can say she's an idiot, or just that she's a sociopath that loves making money off hurting other people. Jerry Seinfeld dated a 17-year-old girl in high school, when he was 39 years old. Funky bass. Seinfeld. So I met someone at the park. George, do these glasses make my face look fat? Elaine, you met someone at the park. George, you shouldn't go to the pub. Too many panhandlers. Jerry, she wasn't a panhandler. George, Elaine, the girl at the park. George, I wasn't listening. These glasses. Elaine, so tell me about her. Jerry, her name is Claudia. She's mumbles. Elaine, what's that? Your mum. Jerry, she might have been 17. Elaine, Jerry, high-pitched. I didn't know at the time. George, imagine meeting her parents. It's awkward enough if she was legal age. Jerry, she is. Asterisk. Kramer bursts. Audience goes wild. Asterisk. Kramer, that's just great. I'm banned from the Apollo Theater. Funky.